concept in Overwatch that doesn't get enough attention for my tastes is plus fights and minus fights. And you can refer to them as whatever you want if you prefer different terminology. But what we're looking at here is when you're playing in Overwatch, fights frequently break down in such a way where it's not just 6 people staring at 6 other people and going, hey, let's walk at each other in one direction and just sort of fight. That's basic bronze, silver level brawl maybe, and probably not even a 6v6 in some of those situations. But what you actually find happens in most of the game is fights break down. So you have maybe a 3v1 over here, and then maybe a 2v1 over here, and you have fights breaking in different ways where there's at least 2 sort of micro fights happening at the same time. And the one that you have more people or more resources for, we would call the plus fight, which the other team would see as the minus fight. The one you have less resources for, we would consider the minus fight, or from the other team's perspective, their plus fight. Now, can other things happen where you have like 3 fights sort of going on at once, or there's a plus fight and a minus fight and also a neutral fight where it's equal? Yeah. And if we look at this last thing, we go, hey, this last fight that we saw between the Gladiators and the Shock here, we've recreated that here, and we do actually have an equals fight over here. Soldier and Tracer are tying each other up. Slightly more responsibility on Tracer to tie Soldier up here, but this is equal. We don't really care about this. We can basically eliminate these from our thought process. But then what happened in the fight that we just looked at was we got a good example of plus and minus fights. So we look at this, and we were in a situation where you went in here, and Winston tried to jump on the backline for Shock. Kaluj responded to this, peeled for it, and was able to bump Winston away out of the sight line of his backline. So now we have created for Red Team a nice good plus fight over here. But it won't stay as a plus fight, even though currently it's a 3v1, if the backline of Gladiators is allowed to reestablish their sightline. They're allowed to walk forward, start contributing again. At that point, it would go back to either a 3v4 or a 4v4 if we include Tracer. That's not what we want if we're Shock. So we look at this and we go, how do we stop ourselves from falling behind? How do we keep this nice plus fight that we have here where we would expect not the Winston to get kills 1v3, but instead for us as Red Team to either be able to eliminate the Winston, perhaps be able to force an ult out of the Winston, or force some other ult to come save him, like a Transcendent zooming over to go get him, or maybe just force a ton of health out of him and make him then leave, and then even if the fights re-merge back into one here where Winston leaves but with no health, and we're able to then go, hey, let's push back in like this. Now we have a 4v4, but we have a 4v4 where they're behind on the other team because of that cost that we created while we had a plus fight. So that's what we would like to have happen. But we can't control that from the plus fight. This has to be controlled from the minus fight. So what's the minus fight? Well, that's what our Tracer is in charge of in this case. And here it's Tracer. It's common for it to be flankers that do this. It's common for it to be off tanks that do this. It can be main tanks that do this. It can really even be a support that does this in some situations. But what you're doing in the minus fight usually is you're trying to lose slowly. You're trying to go, I don't want to spend too many resources of my own. I don't want to double blink in, try to one-clip Zen and recall out. If he just totally disrespects me, sure, I could do that. I could maybe go in an ult and get a pulse bomb elimination. You can get eliminations in a minus fight, but mostly what you're actually trying to do is you are trying to drain time. Because if you look at your minus fight, you're going to be in a situation where by draining time out of your hourglass in this minus fight, you're sort of actually filling back up your team's plus fight hourglass, because time that is down here is really sort of flowing through up into, that's actually time that your plus fight is getting to get ahead, get an elimination, whatever. We like that. So you go, let me be conservative with my blinks here. Let me establish a lot of opponents' attention on this wall. I want my opponents to spend as much attention as they can on this wall that's next to me. That's fantastic. If I can put a little bit of pepper, a little bit of damage into them to slow down their advancement, to keep them honest, to make them think about spending resources, keeping their crosshairs in this direction as they advance, rather than them being able to look over here, them being able to save mobility cooldowns or save defensive cooldowns like barriers, like matrices, like that. No, I want them to have to spend as much as they can in this direction, including their eyeballs. And so you do that with this cover. put a little damage in, blink back here, put a little damage in, tuck back behind the cover. Oh, they're paying too much attention to you? No, I don't want to just stay out here and fight them, and this is the same if I'm on other heroes. I want to establish some of their attention as much as I can in this direction so they have less available to go in this direction, and so that they are slower to get up to the point where they can put direction in that place in the first place. And if you do this well, you can make sure your team wins and gets the value in the plus fight. But you're helping them win the plus fight not by getting a bunch of kills yourself. You did not have to win your fight here in the minus fight. You just needed to slow it down. But this doesn't just apply to dive, and it doesn't just apply to, oh, this is frontline versus backline type thing. Frontline versus backline type thing. No, it's not always that. It can really just be whenever fights break in plus and minus ways, which they frequently will in your ladder games. This is not at all an organized play exclusive. This happens in ladder games because angles are powerful, and the fact that angles are so powerful in shooters like this causes there to naturally be plus and minus fight situations. So we could go at something like this where we see blue team is a brawl team. They're clearly trying to rush down one of the bunkers, the Sigma bunker of the red team. They would expect to win this fight. This is a plus fight for blue team. But the rest of red's team is going to come in here and fix this problem as best they can. They're going to walk in, then they'd have a nice angle, crossfire. That'd be pretty bad for blue team. So Sigma is going to take the minus fight and just do what he can to slow things down. That's going to be put some spam on them so that Orisa has to actually either use fortify or throw down a barrier. She would prefer to do neither of those things until she's here. But by having put pressure on them early, we potentially force some of those things. We're also able to put a little damage into them, keep them honest, keep their eyeballs on us. Those are good things to do. And we're also able to extend our life. We are not going to stand here as Sigma and spend our entire barrier. We're not going to do that and then spend, 300 of our health. No, we're not going to do that. We are going to use the cover to extend our life as much as we can, where we go, hey, it's a little bit of damage that we do to you, then we go to cover, a little bit of damage, we go to cover. Are we likely to eliminate your Hanzo or your BAP, or really even terribly likely to force your lamp if we do it that way? No, but we're able to extend how long we survive, and that's going to let us keep distracting you for longer. Or if we wanted to do this from a different angle, we could go over here, apply some damage nicely through here, spend a little bit of our barrier, recover it, again, do very much the same thing over here as we peek again to do it, and we're slowing down this team's ability to come in here and to punish our fight or to take away our plus fight. So that's what we're doing. It's going to be very common to do this on Sigma, on D.Va. You could find yourself as Monkey jumping on a Cassie plus Mercy. You're not expected to beat that pocketed Cassie. You're just distracting them while your team wins the fight elsewhere, because otherwise you would lose to that angled threat, that sort of thing. So you could do this, lots of heroes. You could even do this on supports. Lucio will go do some of this stuff. He's going to go tie up a Harmony pocketed soldier, that sort of thing, or he's going to tie up a Harmony Orb Tracer that's come in. So every role has some ability to do this, though yes, off tanks will find themselves doing it frequently, flankers, sometimes main supports. Those are things that you would think of. So that's kind of what I wanted to cover today. What's really important to understand here is there are plus and minus fights. Be aware of which one you're in. If you're in the plus fight, yes, you pretty much are pushing to try to get eliminations to actually win the fight, and people that are doing things elsewhere are sort of counting on you to eventually win the fight. If you're in the minus fight, slow it down, put the opponent's attention on walls, on your cover as much as possible. Don't stay behind cover so long that they are able to fully ignore you. Peek again after a second or two or from a new spot, but try to just slow them down, keep them honest, shoot them from the other side effectively is what you're doing for, so they can't disrespect you too hard. So keep these things in mind. They're good concepts to have here. I hope you guys are enjoying the content. If you are and you want to see more thought-provoking content like this for Overwatch, Overwatch 2, or some other stuff, do drop a like, consider subscribing, and I hope to see you in the next one. Thanks. Temporal out.